She joined a book club. He joined a grief group. Neither of them came back. Maya was 22, finishing her degree. Smart, curious, a little lost, the way most people are at that age. A friend invited her to a weekend workshop, personal growth, finding your purpose. The room was warm, the people were kind. Someone looked her in the eye and said, "You have something most people never find." And for the first time in months, she felt like she belonged. David was 54, recently widowed. His friends had stopped calling. The silence in his house had become a sound of its own. A colleague mentioned a grief support group, warm, structured, welcoming. The leader spoke with a calm certainty David hadn't heard since his wife died. "You don't have to carry this alone," the man said, and David believed him. Two different people, two different decades of life, but the mechanics underneath were identical. Because cults don't recruit by advertising themselves as cults. They recruit by offering the one thing you're missing, at the exact moment you're most desperate to find it. What happened to Maya and David has been studied for decades, by psychologists who spent years inside these groups, by neuroscientists who mapped how belief systems hijack the brain, and by survivors who lost years before they understood what had been done to them. This is how ordinary people get brainwashed, and the uncomfortable truth is, you've probably already been recruited by something. Psychologist Hassan didn't study cults from the outside. He spent years inside the Unification Church as a true believer before he escaped and became one of the world's leading cult researchers. He developed what he calls the BITE model, 4 categories of control that nearly every high control group uses. Behaviour control, information control, thought control, emotional control. These aren't abstract theories, they're operational playbooks. For Maya, behaviour control started with love. The group encouraged her to spend more time with them and less with outsiders. Her old friends didn't understand her journey. Her parents were holding her back. Within 3 months, her entire social world had been replaced. She didn't notice because every boundary that tightened felt like belonging getting deeper. For David, information control was gentler. The group leader recommended specific books, discouraged the news. It feeds anxiety. Suggested David limit contact with his brother, who'd expressed concerns. Negative energy disrupts healing, the leader said. David's world shrank, but it felt like clarity. Here's what makes this so effective. When you feel socially bonded to a group, when you're accepted, valued, synchronized with others, your brain releases oxytocin, the same neurochemical that bonds mothers to newborns, the same one that makes eye contact feel like safety. Researchers at the University of Zurich found something even more specific. Oxytocin doesn't just build trust, it amplifies loyalty to the group, while increasing suspicion of everyone outside it. Cults don't just offer community, they engineer a neurochemical dependency on it. And once that bond is formed, threatening it becomes the most powerful punishment available. Both Maya and David learned a new vocabulary. The group had its own words for doubts, resistance, its own word for critical thinking, ego, its own explanation for wanting to leave, fear of growth. Psychiatrist Robert Lifton studied this pattern in prisoners of war returning from China. He called them thought-terminating clichés, pre-packaged phrases designed to shut down internal questioning before it starts. You don't need to ban thinking if you can redefine it as weakness. The final layer is emotional control. Both groups used confessional practices, sharing sessions where members revealed fears, secrets, shame. It felt like trust, but every confession became leverage. When Maya questioned the leader's financial practices, her confessions were quoted back to her. "Remember when you told us you felt worthless? That's the part of you talking now." Her own vulnerability had been weaponized. In 1963, Stanley Milgram proved something most people still don't want to believe. Ordinary people, teachers, accountants, parents, would administer what they believed were lethal electric shocks to a stranger simply because an authority figure told them to continue. The results were worse than anyone predicted. 65% went all the way, not because they were evil, because obedience to authority is wired into us at a level most of us never examine. And here's the mechanism that locks the door. Cognitive dissonance. There's a feeling most survivors describe, a sinking in the stomach when the first doubt breaks through. Because admitting the group is harmful means admitting that you chose it, that you gave up years, that you defended it to the people who tried to warn you, that the person you became inside it might not be who you actually are. The brain would rather double down than face that. Leon Festinger documented this in the 1950s, studying a doomsday cult whose members became more devoted after their prophecy failed. The greater the sacrifice, the deeper the commitment. Now here's where this stops being about other people. Because the bite model doesn't only apply to groups with charismatic leaders and compound walls. It applies to political movements that punish dissent, to online communities that exile anyone who questions the consensus, to workplaces that test loyalty through sacrifice, to relationships where one person controls the information, the language, and the cost of disagreement. The line between a cult and a high-control environment isn't a wall, it's a spectrum, and most of us are somewhere on it. So how do you know? There are patterns. If questioning leadership is treated as betrayal, that's a warning sign. If leaving is framed as personal failure rather than personal choice, that's a warning sign. If the group claims exclusive access to truth and everyone outside it is dismissed as uninformed or dangerous, that's a warning sign. If your world has gotten smaller since you joined and the group is the reason, that's the pattern. Maya left after 18 months. It was a friend from university. Someone Maya had nearly cut off. She sent 3 words. I miss you. And it cracked something open. David took longer, 3 years. It was his granddaughter's birthday that did it. He wasn't allowed to attend. The leader said family events were distractions from the work. David looked at the photo his daughter sent and realized the grief group had given him a new grief. Recovery from cult involvement is one of the least understood psychological processes, because the hardest part isn't leaving. It's rebuilding a sense of self that doesn't depend on the group's validation. It's learning to trust your own thinking again after years of being told your thinking was the enemy. Hassan calls it unfreezing, and it doesn't happen quickly. The reason cult psychology matters isn't because you might join one someday. It's because the mechanisms, love bombing, loaded language, information restriction, manufactured dependency, exist everywhere. In your feed, in your inbox, in rooms you've already walked into. The question isn't whether you're susceptible. Every human is. The question is whether you can see it clearly, before it starts to feel like home. If something in this video felt familiar, not from a documentary you watched, but from something you lived, you're not alone. And having the word for it is the beginning. The next one is already waiting.